Okay. Well, first up, thank you all very much for coming this evening. I'm going to ask the silly question: can you hear me? Is the speaker system working okay? Stick your thumbs up if you can hear me. Looking good. Okay, thank you very much indeed. My name is Alan Journet. I am one of the co-facilitators of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now, and I'd like to welcome you all to this session. I can see we've got quite a few folks that we haven't seen before, and particularly thank you for coming. I'm going to introduce a few folks as we go through the evening, because we have several people doing mini presentations this evening. What we were supposed to do as you were walking in was show videos from Oregon Climate and CCL, but I couldn't get the Wi-Fi working, so unfortunately we didn't manage to show those. Anyhow, if you're interested in the videos that I was going to show, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the links to them. So what we're going to be doing this evening, which is a change in our normal format, we're focusing on one topic this evening for 90 minutes, and it's all about a fee on atmospheric pollution, which I probably should call a mechanism for reining in greenhouse gas emissions. And we're going to have several presentations. I'm going to introduce the topic. Cheryl Reinhardt, who's with the Southern Oregon Citizens Climate Lobby, is going to talk. Right at the end of the evening, Sam Becker, who is representing Oregon Climate, is going to talk about the bills that they have introduced. Sam, unfortunately, is in a class right now, so he's going to sneak out and get to us for half an hour towards the end of the program. David Beal, who is a member of the board of SOCAN, is going to talk about a couple of the bills that are before our legislature. And Tom Bauman, special guest, has come down from Eugene to talk about a bill that he has written, and it is being introduced also. So that's where we're going this evening. So I want to start with a couple of questions. And this is kind of setting the scene. We have regulations and controls, so we don't like people dumping their garbage all over the place, so we have regulations to stop that, just so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. And we have regulations to stop people running their sewage out into our waterways without any prevention. So we have this kind of a mechanism in control to stop them from doing that. The problem is, when it comes to this and this, we don't have any regulations. We don't have anything to stop people doing this, and so folks are using our atmosphere as a free dumping ground, and that's really what we're talking about, using our atmosphere as a dumping ground for waste gases, and these are the gases that we're concerned about, and I'm going to come back to those in just a minute. If you have spent any time looking into the whole issue of global warming, you will probably have seen this chart. If you've seen any of my presentations, you probably will have seen this rascal. And this simply is from NASA, is from the Goddard Institute for Space Studies, and this is depicting the actual data for global warming from 1880. And you can see the problem since, particularly around the late 1970s, 1980, what we have seen is an increase in the temperature on the planet, and that's the problem we're confronting. If you hear people saying, oh, wait a minute, over the last few years we haven't seen any warming, I just want you to point out to them that last 4 years we have a very clear mini pattern. If it's legitimate to look at short-term parts of the cycle, let's look at the last 4 years and see what's happened. I don't think it's legitimate. The point is, this sequence is not statistically significantly different from the pattern that we saw before that. If we go on into the future, and this is the last Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was very interesting, because what they did was something that I hadn't seen before. They put the projections beyond 2100. So the last IPCC one goes up to 2300. And you can see on the left-hand side the degrees centigrade that we're looking at as we go through the next 280 years. We're looking at an increase of something like 10 to 12, potentially 10 to 12 degrees centigrade. And if you're having trouble with centigrade, but you prefer to think in Fahrenheit, then over here you can see those numbers in Fahrenheit. This is what we are looking at if we do nothing. and that's the red line. It's called the business as usual scenario. That's what will happen if we do nothing to control our emissions of this garbage that we're dumping into our atmosphere. I call that unavoidable, and I didn't coin these terms, but that is that's unavoidable. Even if we walked out of this room and regulated all our greenhouse gas emissions over the planet, this is where we would be on the blue line. So you can see we're scheduled for an increase in temperature, but if we manage to address the problem, then we can stabilize the situation. But that is unavoidable. That's going to happen no matter what we do. The other end of the scale is unmanageable. If that were to happen, our natural systems, our agriculture, our forestry would be totally devastated. That is absolutely what we have to avoid if we care about future generations. That's what we're talking about tonight. The main greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide. We've all heard about carbon dioxide because that's the substance which is in the greatest concentration and is the greatest cause of the problem. Its longevity in our atmosphere is centuries, and that's why if we stopped at 9 o'clock tonight, we would still be in for a problem into the future, because that stuff hangs around for a long time. Another one of these gases which is a big problem currently is methane, otherwise known as natural gas, and you've all heard even on NPR. The clean fossil fuel, think about it, right? You've heard about that one? Okay, it pisses me off. It is not the clean fossil fuel, as I will point out. Another one is nitrous oxide, and yes, dihydrogen monoxide water is a contributing agent towards this problem. It actually, however, has a very short lifetime in the atmosphere, so is more a consequence of warming than a cause, although it does add to the cause. Others include chlorofluorocarbons, and the global warming potential is listed on here. The global warming potential is the multiplication of the impact of these gases compared to carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is set at 1, and you can see methane 34 to 86 or so times the impact of carbon dioxide. The reason that's a problem is because methane leaks. It's called fugitive emissions, and from the source to the sink where we burn it, methane leaks, particularly when we're looking at fracked natural gas. These are the trends in the major greenhouse gases over the last, I'm going to get closer so I can actually read. This is from 1985 until about 2015. You can see the pattern. Carbon dioxide has been increasing. That's methane in our atmosphere, and you can see it was increasing, kind of leveled off, but look what happened around 2006, 2007. Methane in our atmosphere is now taking off again. And that becomes a problem precisely because it has anywhere between 35 and 85 times the impact of carbon dioxide. We really can't afford to have methane increasing at the rate it's increasing. That's oxides of nitrogen, a general trend of increase. This is one which we're really concerned about, methane. You probably have heard the argument that we desperately need to control our planetary temperature increase to 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. There are a lot of us who think that is already probably too high, but that's what the international agreements are telling us. That's what the IPCC is suggesting. That's what the Copenhagen Protocol is suggesting. That's 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The problem is we're 4/5 of the way there in terms of what we have already seen in terms of increase and what we have already contributed to our atmosphere. This is, I've always got to throw Ryan into the picture. This is my grandson, Ryan, just to make it a little personal. The problem we are facing is Ryan is now just over a year old. By the time Ryan is 18, gets to vote, if we have not addressed this problem, we will have easily reached that limit. We will be in a situation where the planet is becoming unlivable. We absolutely have to deal with this issue right now. we have to leave a lot of those fossil fuels in the ground. That's why there's a statewide group with which SOCAN and Road Climate are involved calls Keep It in the Ground. There are ways to address this problem. One of them is to put a fee on that atmospheric pollution. SOCAN has positions on this issue. One is, of course, we support reduction of greenhouse gas in our atmosphere. And two, we recognize that carbon pollution imposes a social cost through the consequences which we're all experiencing of heat waves, droughts, floods, severe weather. And what we want to do is eliminate subsidies for carbon-intensive energy and impose fees for using the atmosphere as a deposit for carbon pollution. At this point, Southern Oregon Climate Action Now does not have a position on which of the approaches we're going to be talking about tonight is the one we should support, but we're hoping that the consequence of this evening will be input into our decision on what the best way to go is. The primary culprit is carbon dioxide, no doubt about it, but as I've shown you, a rising star in this firmament is certainly methane equals natural gas. What we're confronted with is the principle of externalities, meaning fossil fuel users dump pollution byproducts, the pollution byproducts of combustion of fossil fuels into our atmosphere free. The result of that is we all pay the price that I was identifying earlier, the droughts, the wildfires, and so forth. And yes, that includes us. We are part of the problem. The question is, are we going to be part of the solution? The primary techniques to redress this oversight are, one is putting a tax or a fee of some kind on that pollution, and the other is to cap that pollution. And I'm going to talk a little about these right now. The difference between these is the tax fee charges for the right to emit gases into our atmosphere. So we are taxing people who are going to do it. Polluters then buy the rights at this predetermined price, the tax or fee that we're putting on it. The other approach is the cap, which involves limiting the allowable amount of total emissions in that area. And then polluters buy allowances at predetermined prices or through auction, which allows them to release greenhouse gases up to that total which we set. The first one we're going to look at this evening is a fee on atmospheric pollution, the carbon tax or fee. What I should say is there are many bills actually this session before the Oregon legislature. There are 5 that we're going to be looking at this evening. 3 of them are greenhouse gas emission tax or fee bills, and then 2 of them are cap bills. One of the questions that we want to ask ourselves when we have put a fee on carbon or greenhouse gases is, what are we going to do with the funds that we raise? We could use them for other socially valuable activities, decrease other taxes or commensurate amount, which is what a revenue neutral tax is all about, or we can return them to citizens as a dividend. And Cheryl is going to talk to you in a few minutes about the Citizens Climate Lobby approach to this issue at the federal level, which is putting a fee on carbon and returning it to the people. The Oregon Climate Bill, which deals with this issue, has a similar approach. Key questions that we should be asking ourselves about these approaches are the following, it seems to me. One, does the proposal that we're looking at address all greenhouse gas emissions or only some? Some bills that we see coming forward only address carbon as a surrogate for carbon dioxide. If this is what the bill is doing, it's likely to encourage use of natural gas, which is a real problem because of those fugitive emissions I mentioned. Because of the methane leakage, shale fracked natural gas is actually worse than coal. And one of the problems we have is that nasty word, natural. Whoever coined that term originally really was a big problem for all of us. We shouldn't be using the term natural. I'm going to encourage you. Don't use the word natural gas. Call it dirty gas, because that's what it is. One of the questions we should be asking about, I think, if we're imposing a tax or a fee, is the way it's done a progressive or a regressive tax? Progressive meaning it sort of helps out lower income workers or employees more than wealthy ones. Regressive does the opposite, helps rich people out more than the rest of us. If it's a revenue neutral tax, where are the taxes lowered? On our funds returned as a dividend. Another question, is the proposal politically feasible? Is it something that's likely to pass the legislature? And a third one, which is very important when we're looking at Oregon issues, is whether that proposal is likely to survive as a ballot measure. One of the points that we have been advised is anything that passes the legislature, if it's something that we really like, it's going to end up as a ballot measure. And that means we've got to be sure that we can persuade 50.1% of the population to vote for it as a ballot measure, even after our friends from the fossil fuel corporations funnel millions and billions of dollars into the state to defeat it. So if its likelihood of surviving as a ballot measure becomes an important issue. My contention is we're likely to have one bite at this cherry. We're not going to get it half done and be able to come back and do it again. So we better do it right the first time. Oh, I'm out of battery. Just in time for show, I just ran out of battery, so I'm going to change the battery.